Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome. Welcome to this impromptu broadcast from the Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri Foundation. We have been amassing a few questions which Shaykh Fadhlalla is willing to answer today, sitting here. And broadly, the questions arise from contemplation of the Quran and issues related to that, and also to do with the conditions of modernity, our modern life. How do we engage with it? What should we ignore? So we're going to start with a few of these questions, and inshallah we hope to complete as many as possible in this next hour. And whatever we are not able to address, Shaykh Fadhlalla will be willing, inshallah, to sit with us for another session, inshallah. So, Shaykh Fadhlalla, some people advise us to stay away from the news or from issues that disturb the heart and focus on what gives us life. What is your advice regarding engagement with global and local issues of our time? Is it not a form of escapism to avoid them? Is the powerlessness we feel an indication of weak faith? Do human beings have the ability to really create change? And if not, what is your advice about what is it that we can actually do?
Whatever you say has a touch of truth, and it is not lasting. Therefore, it is only a temporary flash reflecting the truth. If you bear in mind the fundamental issue that يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه. Oh, human being, you are in between. You are between the infinite, the eternal, and the finite, and departure. And if you remember the nature of the self, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Part of me is decaying, dying, nonsense, it's all some gurgling, material issues. Another part is a light that has no beginning and no end. If you bear in mind all the time that each one of us is composed of divine light, which is beyond the confinement of space and time, and a being, a creature that has moved and evolved over billions of years from being just a touch of life on earth to being this human being, and the Adamic composition which connects the two. If you bear that in mind, then a question of modernity or changes or so on, truth never changes. The eternal light never changes. The original light never changes. The ultimate destiny of light doesn't change. It is the in-between process. We are all in a zone that is in between fujuraha wa taqwaha. Quite a lot of rubbish and debris and the pollution we have made the whole world totally choked with, and a light that is beyond the measures that this earth or even this galaxy or the entire multiverses cannot encompass. Put things in perspective. Human being is being given this opportunity, magnificent, to deal with the relative, the changing, the uncertain, whilst referring to, calibrating with, asking the source as to its context, whether it's right or not, or how temporary it is, or how long-lasting it is. As long as there are human beings, there will be a quest. Who am I? Who is it? Where is God? How can I be content durably? This will never stop until individuals realize that the outer will always reflect touches of the light and can never end. So they manage by obsession with truth, with constancy of that prayers to the ultimate light, to realize that the truth is ever effulgent. Versions of it, like we are in this zone, is hazy, uncertain. This is how it is. Then you're reconciled between that which is timeless and that which is within time.
Thank you, Shaykh Fadhlalla. Slightly related to this and moving on from it, Allah tells us in the Quran of civilizations that rise and fall. This question comes from the UK. Here in the UK, the numbers of people infected and dying with COVID-19 are rising. Is this a sign of bad management by the government? Can we learn anything from these collective failures? Or should our emphasis always be our individual relationship to our deen?
Individuals cannot exist without the collective. Human beings cannot survive unless there are others. It's not just babyhood, it's not in between. You need reflection of other human beings, and then you relate it to your own innermost meaning and memory and past experiences so that you improve. What is improving? So as you are more and more in the now, so that you are less and less afflicted by bad or good memories, nor afflicted by fear of the future. You're in the now. Individually and collectively, we are all subject to good deeds and bad deeds, and they mingle. In the European context, there had been reasonable attempts lately not to overwhelm nature, not to destroy all the creatures. But this is very recent. After hundreds of years of excessive abuse of nature, whether it is at the vegetative level, at the plants, at the trees, and whatever it is, we have been exceedingly materialistic and obsessive. Therefore, we created amazing wealth in silly cities. Within it lies the greatest impoverishment of the indwellers. So you can't just say, is it good or is it bad? Wherever there is goodness, there is badness, and vice versa. The only thing is that if the orientation and accountability is towards that which is most durable for the largest number of living entities, not just humans, life is reverence. You have reverence for life, then you find at all levels it is giving us a message. Every living entity tries to prolong its life. That is worship. It says there is nothing in this existence unless it is in tasbih or ibadah. ولكن لا تفقهوا تسبيحهم. But you don't understand how they are worshipped. This is how they are worshipped. Prolonging life, because life is forever. And I am not, because I've identified myself with the birth and death, but the fact that I am trying to prolong life, that's a proof that I am obsessed with life, which is forever. Simple.
So staying in the zone of this world, it does seem that everything seems to be pitted against Muslims. What are we being asked to learn from this?
Initially, of course, we are all tribal. So if somebody attacks your family, your race, your color, you resent it and you try to defend it because you want a balance. So if somebody says all of these people of this country are bad, you stand against it to balance. So balance meaning in the middle, meaning an aspect of it is truth, an aspect of it is no. So when you hear somebody attacking Muslims, naturally, I think if you have a sentiment and you love the Quran and the Muslim culture, whatever history, and you have identified with that, you want to defend it because it's natural for you to want to belong and make that which you belong to as credible, good, higher in level in terms of whatever human benefits and so on. But then after you stop defending or you didn't keep quiet, you find there is a truth in what they are saying. They're saying the Muslims are hypocrites and so on. Well, stop for a minute. There is a truth in it. So benefit from that, rather than just being offended, and therefore you defend and enter into the usual futile argument. If the Muslim is living the Deen and the Quran, he will be invariably an example to others, without imposing it, without preaching, without teaching, without pointing finger. Because in the nature of human beings, everybody wants the best for themselves. And they want the best for their close ones. And the best more, until the best of humanity. So if you are truly living in the Quran, it says, no matter what you do, you have a fault. Because you're still in the frame of a human being who is bracketed within space and time. And his ruh is from beyond space and time. So you have not completed the story. You are incomplete story. How can you be content? So, and your discontentment comes out as anger, as rancor, as blame, and as claim. See the truth in a lie. A lie cannot be considered a lie unless it has a spark of truth. But then it becomes less of a lie, and so on, and then it's in between, and then it becomes more towards truth. You say, no, there is more truth in it. If your eye is trained to pick the light of haqq or truth, you will see it everywhere, because you won't see anything other than haqq.
Allah. The next question is the last in this batch on modern life. The questioner says, I get the feeling that when we complain about patriarchy on the one hand, or toxic femininity on the other, that we are missing the point. Please, can you shed some light on the most effective way to deal with the multifaceted dysfunctions of modern life? Sometimes it seems like perhaps we're giving attention to or are trying to change the wrong things. What is your guidance on this?
There are two issues here. One is the issue of duality. The Quran repeatedly reminds us nothing ever created except in twos. So the issue of gender differences is part of that. It's just the garb is different. And the female is given the greater opportunity, honor, and difficulty in procreating. So there are twos, and the whole object is to complement this duality and see the sameness and the oneness. So that is on that particular issue. Then it comes to the challenges in this life and the why we have all sunk into such a low level of even humanity, while still talking about civilization and about progress and all of that. It's mainly because we lost referencing our actions, our thoughts, our day-to-day life to the absolute. So we have all sunk into the illusion that material acquisition and power is going to give us durable joy, contentment, and happiness. It does give us a bit of pleasure, but with pleasure comes pain. Doesn't mean you have to abstain. No, you naturally will not want accumulation because you're already now benefiting from the amazing gift of life itself. It is the ultimate cosmic treasure that is beyond any pleasure, beyond anything else. It's the treasure of treasures of treasures. But in order to be in that domain of that infinitude of perfections, you have to naturally turn away from everything else. Not by force, not by threat, not by fear. It's natural. You are no longer interested. You know, a 4-year-old child wants a tricycle and so on. All right, when he is 70-year-old, bring him a tricycle. Maybe actually he likes it because by then he can't walk. You never know. It is context. And the entire attempt is to be fully in the moment. If you are fully in the moment, then you are fully in eternity. Because the moment is endless. It appears as though it's moving. This is the trick and the illusion of the imaginal, our lower level of conditioned consciousness. We imagine there is space and time and movement and change. It's only imaginal. It's a child play. Not until you manage to accept it and keep in absolute neutrality in terms of your consciousness, then you may touch upon the zone of the infinite, which is the nature of the now.
Well, that connects very nicely to the next questions I have, because they're both about presence and the now. One says, please describe and elaborate more about being in hudur, in presence. And the other question is that reminds us that you talk a lot about how immense the present moment is, and if we accessed it, there is nothing more we need. And the questioner would like to know, how do we access the present moment? And if we do, how do we know we have experienced it?
You need to turn this question upside down. It is emanating from the zone of the imaginal, of our conditioned mind, understanding, and language. All what there is boundless, infinite, absolute presence. That is called also Allah or God. That's all what there is. Now, how do I, who have identified myself with this person coming and going and sitting and talking, and how can I reconcile that which is beyond the possibility of any change or movement or in any other way that the mind can comprehend, with that which is very relative, is a creature? It is a subject to a most amazing, ultimate miracle, that awareness of awareness of awareness. That is the miracle of human being. That's the miracle of the soul or spirit within you and I, and within every creature that experiences life. They all have souls. They're also human. They have got nations like us. They are also have got the individual and the collective, and. When it comes to the final test, every one of these creatures exhibits total obsession with life as he or she or it knows it. So they'll defend it. Eventually they'll bite, because they want to defend life, because life is forever. And all what you and I and he and she know is that I'm obsessed with foreverness. Therefore, there's this procreativity. More. We have been ongoing, our habit has been going on for thousands of years. It gives us a touch of something like as though it is sacred. There's nothing. The only thing that's sacred is sacredness itself. The rest is what we attribute. So eternity, absoluteness, totality, foreverness, all of these are descriptions of the nature of your own life. So your own life is infinite. The soul or the spirit in you lives forever, but not the so-called you, because the so-called you is a combination of this inner state and the outer also connectedness with your race, with your color, with your genes, epigenetically, and on and on and on and on. So you are a combination of the absolute and the very finite. Each one of us is the same. Once you accept the limited, say, yes, I am this, I'm hungry now, you can't talk to me because I'll be angry very quickly, or what. Quieten the donkey, the monkey, and the animal has to be, in a way, pacified. Keep quiet. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَلَمَّا صَارَ فُؤَادِ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَرِغَ. Repeatedly the ayahs tell us, you have to empty your consciousness of all of these outer needs, or desires, or drives. Once they've been neutralized, then you do your wudu. You're now entering into another zone, or knocking at the door of another zone of consciousness. So you realize they are seamlessly connected. Your eternal inner light and the ever-changing outer experiences are seamlessly connected timelessly. Then you're content. Then you know you carry within us a faint memory of all the animals, all of the other vicious ones and the peaceful ones and the bacterias and the viruses. We began that way. So then you have become, in a way, universal. And if you are truly universal, yielding to it, then the story is complete. When the story is complete, you are content. How can you ever rest assured before you have actually experienced death? Because your story is never complete until death. So die before you die, meaning stop all thoughts, all fears, all sorrows, all emotions completely and hold it there. And then you find, no, this life is only a transition between the unseen, the unknown, towards the infinite again, after you leave your temporary home, your body, and its connection with the higher light, your mind. That's all it is.
You touched on contentment just now. I have a question here about how do I discern the difference between contentment and complacency?
I would like to take a pin in my hand and prick the person who asked this question sufficiently hard that he or she will scream. So now you are expressing discontentment, and you have not been complacent either. Contentment is the nature of the soul or the spirit. Discontentment and fear and doubt is the nature of the self. And the self cannot exist without the soul. And the soul cannot be understood except via the suffering with the self.
There are times when I experience closeness and at other times distance to Allah. Could you comment on that?
Yes, I would think most Muslims will benefit a lot if they leave this continuous, constant use of the word Allah. I would rather have the question much more honest and real, that I'm sometimes more confused than other times. But we want to elevate the whole story. So I say, I'm close to Allah, I'm fine. What sort of Allah is it that He's not in charge of everything, including your so-called distance?
You've spoken about vertical and horizontal consciousness. Could you explain the relationship of these two types of consciousness?
It was not I who spoke that. But it has a useful cosmology. But ask Dr. Adnan.
Well, it's not. This is actually it's not unique to our discussions or discourses. The idea of horizontal being more communally minded. I mean, you've described it in the past where that
referring to other mirrors, horizontally in terms of social connectedness, importance of friends, relatives, those whom you consider more knowledgeable than you, religious authorities, whatever. So this is, you look at them and you know approval or disapproval. The cat does it to you all the time. Your dog does it to you. Other people, they look at you, they want a hint. So are they on the right track or not? See? We all want approval because we want success. But in truth, we want victory because with success comes failure. Initially, we want success and with it come, we want pleasure, with it come pain. And until such time, you want a state that is no longer subject to these two. So all of us as human beings within space and time are subject to this uncertainty. Until you learn to be able to completely still your mind and your values and truly refer to the nur of Allah in your own heart, to your own soul or spirit. And then you will know whether it's the right time or not, or whether you should tone it down or not, or run away or what. So there is the horizontal, and the other one is the vertical. Go to the inner light, and it may inspire you to be silent, which is perfect. What's wrong with being silent?
So you said you would rather that Muslims abandon the term Allah.
No, they abuse it. They use it all the time. It's not in context. This is the context of yourself being more confused. Why do you bring Allah to it? You say, I am very confused. Some other time I'm less confused. But you want to elevate the whole thing and make it as though it is this. So you bring Allah, Allah, Allah. And that is part of the suffering of the Muslims, that they have no sufficient reverence for Allah, for these terms.
So it fits in right here. I have a question from a 17-year-old who says that I feel I have a yearning to look into the concept of God, and I feel that I want to find the truth in a religion, but I'm looking at changing my religion, and I don't know if this is right, as Islam feels too confined and judgmental.
We often confuse Islam with Muslims. Just now, we have been hearing more and more how the whole world is, if you like, finding the behavior of the Muslims very unacceptable according to modern day civilization. Don't equate Muslims with Islam. I made a stupid mistake many, many years ago. Tried to separate the, if you like, inadequate conduct of Muslims from Islam. And I completely failed. The word itself, people equate it. But this issue is similar. So many Christians also complain about the misbehavior of unchrist-like of the, and so on and so on. It's not unusual. But if you go back to Quran, the Quran tells you you have been created in order to perfect your worship, meaning to be more and more single-pointed in resonating with the eternal light. So don't equate. In other words, my answer to this young person is, don't let the behavior or misbehavior of Muslims stopping you from enjoying and living the treasures that have been given to us through Quran. So, not easy.
So someone asks that they find it difficult to accept that the sincerity and love of my brothers and sisters on this path, and even mine, hasn't resulted in a cataclysmic mass awakening. Why are we not awakening?
Because the fundamentals are not there. They are not true, unconditional brothers and sisters. It became a very superficial way. You know, they are at each other's throat. They say, it's like the politicians nowadays, you see. And until recently, they would also cloak it in the honorable gentleman. Now, before they speak, it's the cheating gentleman. So this is how it is, brothers and sisters. Who are your brothers and sisters? They ask Imam Hussein. Somebody comes and tells him and said, I'm giving you a greeting from my brothers. He said, who are your brothers? He said, they're my people who are in my town. He says, can you give me one of them whom you can go to and put your hand in his pocket without asking him his permission and take what you want, and he's celebrating because you've done that? He said, no, there isn't one. He said, then don't call them brothers. We have become accustomed to a language. It's for that reason people who embrace or discovered Islam afresh can give us a lot of lessons, but they often are unacceptable because they don't eat the chapati the same way as the Muslim does, or whatever they know. He's not the same. He's not one of us. In the last 200 years, hundreds of people embraced Islam, and they were of great sincerity, honesty, but you can hardly find any one of them who is accepted by established Muslim communities.
Allah.
The nature of the human beastie. It's nothing to do with Islam or Christianity. It's the nature of the human beast. Because he has a touch of the divine, so he wants to become the ultimate God on earth.
But then this question follows on nicely here. If I truly believe that I am sincere but not enlightened yet, what am I doing wrong?
These are words. There is only the light of the one. Once you go into the enlightenment and awakening and transcendent, it's endless. Go and join the hippies somewhere and at least have a nice dance and song and get into drugs. It doesn't work. Why are you? If you are very sincere, that means you are living the moment. Sincerity is you are in touch with the infinite moment. So what's the problem? And what's wrong with occasionally having some difficulty? What's wrong? Occasionally having illness. What's wrong with dying? You have to celebrate it. No, but I thought if I'm sincere, what do you mean? You want to live until you're 170 years? You're already 50 years and you're stupid.
Allah speaks about signs for those who reflect and those who have understanding. Can you explain more about
Yes,
these?
the Quran only makes sense if you unconditionally live your faith. Mu'min, 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 mu'min. Means nothing will touch you unless you know it has come from Allah. So you don't suffer. If you are a mu'min, then you listen and you hear it. Because it's a language. And the mu'min has conditioned himself or herself to be touched by that language. That's why the Quran repeatedly tells you, you can't touch, nobody can touch it. You can only connect with those who are living their iman. And you'll go throughout the world and you may not be able to find enough to count on two hands. Because I'm not perfected by iman. So how can I find it? And then if you really are truly living in full faith, then you find everything is living according to their level of faith. Everyone. Their level of suspicion. Their level of doubt. So there is honesty across. But you don't see it. ولكن لا تفقهوا تسبيحه. You have to be totally, utterly, unconditionally honest. And then you see things as they are. One of the greatest du'as Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam always made, Allahumma arini al-ashya'a kama hiya. Show me things as they are. So everybody actually is exuding who they are. They're announcing it. Before they come to the room, say, I'm so disappointed. Where is the faith in that? Where is the iman in that? And on and on and on. Even before the one word is uttered, you know what the person's state is. The outer world is a total reflection of your inner world. And if your inner world is illumined by Allah's rahmah, then everything is fine. Yes, they were all criminal. They all came here and they killed and pillaged, and eventually they'll also die. And then they will know what they did. We tried to resist. We couldn't. We were very few. And they killed us. And we made a mistake because we were in a rock, but we came out of the rock and start inspecting the rock. you must laugh at our conditioned consciousness.
So is human knowledge a reflection of divine knowledge?
Everything.
And is true knowledge only by inspiration? Is it
Everything is a reflection of the original, ever-present, constant divine. Only with filters. Some of the filters are so strong and some become dark. Every soul is sacred. So, but we say, why then some people are so criminal? Because the darkness of the self is so immense that they act like the devil. But within the devil lies the touch of light. That's why I said earlier, no lie ever can exist unless there is a touch of the spark of truth. Wherever you turn, there is the presence of Allah. Where is it then? Allah nur samawati wal ard. Wherever you turn, it's there.
So I'm interested in the relationship between a transactional relationship with Allah and a transformational relationship with Allah.
Sorry, I can't answer this.
You can't answer that. But isn't it that we relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in...
It is as though Allah is beyond.
Right.
Allah's nur is in you, and you are talking because Allah's nur is in you. So behave yourself.
So you're saying the very question itself has the wrong...
No, not the wrong. It just shows that the person needs to evolve. Take 5 years of your life and do everything that your nafs doesn't like, and then come and talk.
But it is that a lot of us engage in our iman, in enacting our Islam as a sort of okay, well, I won't go into.
I'm getting too pained.
All right.
I don't want pain. I don't want to be unhappy.
Let's talk about the fact that your description of ibadah and how we should be in ibadah is it should be as
ibadah is that there is no you.
Okay.
There's only the eternal light of haqq appearing in most cases, in our cases, as caught within space and time. La ilaha illallah. There is none other than that. Appearing in our zone as dualities. In truth, it encompasses dualities, pluralities, multiplicities, but there's only one. You have to elevate through suffering, through pain, until you find all of it is one. So the moment of death, you welcome it. You say it is celebration, because here I was all the time comparing good and bad, up and down, two. Now I am relieved of this constant exercise like a monkey. I'm losing this vehicle I had of the body and the connecting vehicle I had between the physical and the non-physical, which is the mind. I'm relieved now. The real I is my ruh, and the ruh is min amri Rabbi. So that's it. Relief. Celebrate.
So I have a question about attention and intention, particularly in relationship to the double slit experiment. So quantum scientists speak about that observation affects the outcome, and some even imply that things do not exist until being witnessed. So things often change when they're witnessed, and people notice when they're being watched, even if they don't see the observer. Allah says He created in order to be known. Could you please give us a bit of insight into the secret of witnessing, of attention relative to creation, and also about awareness of awareness? How does it relate to refining the heart on the spiritual path?
The heart contains the soul, and the soul is perfect and ever pure. If the heart has been filled up with jealousy, fear, darkness, then the light of the soul does not, if you like a torch that has been muffled, it doesn't show. So you need to make sure your heart is pure, clear, generous, has no debris in it. So the light of your own soul can shine in front of you. As the Quran also describes, it shines for you, it's like a torch. Now, my advice to, if you want to have a bit of basic science, consider quantum physics as being the field of boundless energy, and normal Newtonian physics as confined within space and time. And what happens is that when something that is of a higher state, like in the quantum field, touches the lower physical entity, such as my witnessing, it reduces into that. In other words, it becomes a particle. Mm-hmm. A photon, which is a wave function, becomes a particle by my being a big gravity, this human entity, transmitting to it through my sight. It changes. It lowers itself to lower nature. That is why also, if you want to see faults of people of very high station of elevation in life and awakening, you will see their faults. Perfect. Because of you. You are the center of gravity. So you reduce everything to you. So the same thing as the earth. It sucks everything around it, for a few hundred kilometers. So it is like that. So the quantum field, which is the boundless, so to speak, if you like, field of consciousness, is reduced to earthly consciousness by the human presence. That's all what I understand it, and I see it as a perfect metaphor for you can reduce the greatest prophetic thing. Go to the Quran, you find as it happened. You know, there were many people earlier on who were very affected by the character, the quality of the Prophet Muhammad. And there had been lots of books written about it by a lot of people in the West. And then with the Quran, no. They said this is gibberish. This doesn't make sense. It is not rational. It says this. Because the Quran is like making bridges between the infinite and the finite. So if you don't have Iman, if you don't approach it with faith, trust, purity, it will seem to you very incongruous. That's it. It is like a meal that is of very high, octane. You can't do it. Give something very, very, for our taste, enjoyable and so on. Give it to a 6-month-old baby. They spit it out. Doesn't work. You have to have the right aptitude for it. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Nobody can even touch it, let alone understand it, let alone benefit. It doesn't.
What about, there is this hadith, which is, I left with you two thaqalains, two weights. And as long as you cling to them, you will not be lost. The book of Allah and my family.
Conduct, the way of behavior.
So that's the Shia version. The Sunni version
I don't know.
Sunnah,
I don't know.
isn't it?
Doesn't matter. It's the same. It
Yeah,
means conduct.
absolutely.
Meaning, if you are living Quran, then it makes full sense. You understand the theory and the practice because it transforms you to being a being which is not afflicted by small little changes that always take place. We're living in a hazy world of uncertainties that nothing ever remains constant or gives you reliable security. So where is your security? It's in the light in your own heart. So you are in this world, not of this world. So you have the light of the Quran and the shadows that we have inherited over millions of years, billions of years, as living entities, life on earth. Once you identify with life itself, then you have complete contentment. Once you identify with life as manifest, 1 minute is good, 1 minute is bad. That's all.
Is taqwa consciousness?
Cautious awareness with reverence. I don't want to burn. I don't like to be bad. I don't like uncertainty. I don't like bad. I like goodness, goodness that lasts forever. So taqwa is that I want to avoid it. Don't tell me that.
So it's an aspect of consciousness.
Of awareness that comes more in the forefront. It's more in the forefront before you enter the hall.
What about the role of huzn? The Sufis often talk about huzn as having great value. Is there a connection with expectations and your idea of?
There are a dozen such terms. Huzn, all the other regrets, even guilt, all of them are part of it. So don't come near me, you'll suffer. Regrets, misery, anguish, all of these. We don't like it. The soul, in a way, encourage us not to go near it because its nature is light upon light upon light. And I am alive because of my soul. So how can I accept or put up with misery and grief and all of that? I don't like it. My real nature, my lasting nature, my divine nature doesn't want it. But my animal nature got used to it because for billions of years we were eating each other and all that in the jungle. It's only just now we have emerged and having all of more dresses, more this and that, and pretense and all of that. All the stupidity we have camouflaged ourselves.
There's a question about a verse from the Quran, and seek by means of what Allah has given you the future abode, and do not neglect your portion of this world, and do good as Allah has done good to you, and do not seek to make mischief on the land.
Wonderful.
What are the key messages from this verse?
All of it.
All of it's quite clear.
No, to begin with is, what is my intention before I'm doing? What is my intention? The greatest teachings have been that. Pure intention, pure intention. Then correct announcement, correct language. And then efficient, correct, good action. These has been repeatedly. Yeah. Think good, speak good, act good, and so on and so on. So this is all what it is. Otherwise you regret it. And that's also the rahmah of Allah. Regrets and sorrow and guilt are all part of Allah's, and pain, part of Allah's rahmah. I don't want pain. I don't want regret. I don't want. So be aware. Most of our, if you like, causes of sorrow is that I wasn't present at that moment. If I was present, I wouldn't have said it. You don't need to. It's not your business. Somebody's asking, no, but we all the time cause a lot of mischief, and we spend the rest of our time trying to apologize or say we didn't do it. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. You kick somebody and so on, and then after a week they're injured. You say it wasn't me. Who was it then? That's why the legal system has to say, no, this was this frame, although it changes all the time, every second. It changes, not the same, not the same.
No. The Quran mentions that we, should strive for this world and the next. Exactly.
No,
verse.
No, it doesn't say strive.
Oh.
Do not neglect your portion.
Yeah.
This world is a preparation for the next. They're seamlessly connected. This is the doorway to the infinitude. If I can't, because there are dozens of other ayahs which are even much firmer. وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى كَانَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى. If you are blind in this world, you will be blind, more blind in the next. And there are many other. And then a person who is brought up blind in the next world, in the Quran, he says to God, he says, لِمَا خَلَقْتَنِي أَعْمَى وَكُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. Why did you make me blind now and I had sight before? If your sight in this world doesn't lead you to the insight, then you are not performing your duty. Or you are very stupid, because it's intelligence that relieves you from the so-called you.
So the angle of this question is, how do we apply ourselves to our work and our family and even the working towards the afterlife without any attachments or expectations?
Human being cannot live without some attachments of expectation. It's the extent of it. One extent of it is that you think somebody's going to give you all the time this and that as you wish, so you get angry, you get upset, and this story of young parents with children all the time. There is nothing other than mayhem, most of the cases. It's all confusion, misunderstanding, blame and claim, and they bang doors and they try to go to sleep. And of course they become depressed. So the issue is that, what are your expectations? And of who? My expectation ultimately ends up in my wanting to see things through the vision, through the sight of the divine. They're idiots. What else can they do other than hit each other? They're stupid. He had expectation that she is going to give him, the joy, eternal joy of life. He expected the same, and he wanted a mummy and a dummy and a bummy. And she wanted, how else can it be other than a kerfuffle? So once you see, this is how it is. This earth is a tiny little gymnasium for people to practice the art of reading the moment. Iqra, iqra. Reading what? Reading the physical, the chemical, the physical, heavenly, the earthly, the intentional. Read, 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 until you are fully in the immense eternity of the present. Expectation, ultimately, if I have expectation of myself to be a soul, that's the very good expectation. Be as a soul. Soul has no regrets, has no fear, has courtesy, Because light is ever content. So if my expectation is of me to be me, real me, soul, it's a good one. That's why I expected him not to be like this. Papa John, he had 4 days of indigestion. What do you expect? This fellow is a walking sewage, dysfunctional sewage.
So the relationship between pure consciousness and us, what is it that the Quran, what light does the Quran shed on this mystery, the unseen, the relationship of the unseen to us?
The whole of the Quran is that, actually, is to show us different ways, different degrees, different intensities of seeing the one behind the two, or reconciling two-ness in oneness. All of it. Now, how do you explain? There are hundreds of such ayahs. أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَرَى? Doesn't he know that Allah sees? Tell me, what does that mean? What does that mean? You see it, he sees it, she sees it, but it says, but Allah sees it. All of these are different versions, different interpretations. But what about the true, ultimate interpretation? أَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ. And إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَكُمْ. But the whole thing is about to reconcile. Our life on this earth is for us to be able to put up with the two, play with the two, suffer from the two, occasionally enjoy the two, but then see the light of the one that caused the two, and the two returning back to the one.
So about the verse, he will test you by your own methods.
Listen, I am being constantly, by millions of different instruments within me, being tested. My touch, my sight, all of them are messengers. Everything that exists is a messenger in this life. Whether it's an animal or it's a lion or it's a human being, they're messengers. Somebody suddenly comes in this room and says, you did this, you're very angry, and they tear the thing and they go out. What is this? So much that somebody who felt secure in whatever their state was, whatever I said, touched them and shattered their security. Nobody likes to be insecure. So he or she is expressing, I'm very insecure, damn you all. An expression of insecurity. Read that. Iqra. So Allah sent him as a messenger. Don't be with these people. Don't be with people. Yes, keep calm. You are at a time, at a zone that there is so much anger, so much suspicion, so much. So don't do it. That's it. So you message, and eventually you end up connecting in a useful, efficient, enjoyable way. The drive in life is to connect continuously, because your ruh is connected continuously. So you are energized by that. So how can you not want to connect? Connect. That's all. Everything wants to connect. The ant, the dog, the monkey, the politician, the same. Connect. Politicians want to have affirmation that they are connected with, the majority. But is he or she connected with their own soul? Do they regard all other creatures and human beings as the same? There are few unusual emergence of politicians who almost they do that. It's amazing. New breed. But the old stuff and so on is so stuffy and so depressing.
So in terms of approaching the Quran when you're in need, sometimes we don't. I mean, you're making everything seem very clear and straightforward, but sometimes we can't hear his words. So what is the best way to be able to listen to the Quran properly, to hear?
Be with those who have heard it better than you. And let them suffer.
Allah. I have a few questions in relationship specifically to women and Quran. And one of them is that they would love to hear on your reflections about women in the Quran and the connection of the word compassion, rahma, to a word for womb, raham.
The Quran repeatedly addresses both mu'minina wal mu'minat. All the time, two. So you mustn't have too much of this issue, especially in South Africa, because in many other minority areas and so on, who came to modernity, they have, in a way, brought with them a lot of baggage of the past, gender issues. And it's endless. If you want to go to the past, you will be horrified. So I take the line that I consider men, women, as far as truth, reality, potential is concerned, they're exactly the same. So the Quran repeatedly reminds us that. It's according to the extent of your faith, trust, and iman. But for the last few hundred years, there has been a very strong patriarchal dominance, especially amongst Muslims. And they're emerging from it now. That's why they are challenged more than any other community. Their families, their so-called communities, their religious, challenged to the very high extent. Until women are genuinely respected and regarded in every way. And more so, because they have got an additional responsibility than men of continuity of humankind. 50 years ago, if a woman was really genuine for that, she would be producing, usually expected children, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now with this overpopulation of the world, what do you make out? It's changed very rapidly, and it's going to be very difficult for traditional people to adjust to it.
Well, thank you. You actually answered the next question I had, especially about the patriarchal imprint. Thank you for answering that. One person would like to have help on decoupling their mind from personifying Allah. It says, what can help me understand his nature without limiting him by my human conception?
More darkness, more confusion. And you stop all of that. There is no you in Allah. That is where the whole beginning is faulty from the beginning. You're on a rail track that is neither a track nor a rail.
Can I put a couple of Shara'i questions towards you? One is about inheritance and one is about riba. Both of these are issues that continuously seem to come up in human society. For example, in the Quran, a man is entitled to double of what a woman inherits. But in today's circumstances, if we are to consider a situation where inheritance is required to be divided between brothers and sisters who live in different countries and are independent of each other, but perhaps have similar health and financial challenges, is it allowable to divide the inheritance equally between all? What is the kind of guiding principle here?
The Quran came at a time that there was a great deal of confusion and chaos and disorder amongst human beings. There was the Persian Empire on one side, there was the Roman other side, and so on. Now, the Quran brought in considerable level of justice at many, many, many levels. And the influence of Islam and Quran filtered throughout humankind. And so until about, say, 200 years ago, it was still a very, very important reference. But now you have most civil law is as good as you can get. So issues of this inheritance, again, is a cultural one in that at that time, men were responsible to take care of their women folks. And a man inheriting twice as much as the woman, that twice he had to spend it on everyone, including the women. And the woman had her share, it was hers. But times have changed. And you can also change. You can divide your whatever you want before you die. So it doesn't matter. You've done it. Not a big deal. Become shari'i, all this funny business. What is shari'i? Shari'i means you don't have regrets about it. And it is correct and just and stands the test of time. All right, you consider you divided. Not a big deal.
What about the question of riba being haram? Does this mean multiplied and exorbitant interest, or does it also apply to the current banking system? Is our current banking system haram? And yet we're all
Our way of life is haram. All of it is a lie upon lie upon lie. Government, the industry. Is there an industry that doesn't truly, not noticeably, but truly strive for monopoly? Is monopoly abuse? It is not just having a bit of a share of an interest more. It's abusive. The whole system, we are living in an abusive thing. We did it before them. We got the contract before them. We are living up to our neck in filth, in corruption, in decadence, in lies, because we are not treating other people exactly as we treat ourselves. If you don't refer to those ayahs or those references, that everyone is essentially the same, Bani Adam, he who is loved most by Allah is he who cares and serves the family of Allah. And the Quran says, not until you regard he who is your enemy as your best friend. Have you found anybody like that? So you talk about riba and talk about bank. All of it is haram. That's why I don't have a bank account.
There's a question about the word azab. It appears in the Quran more than 300 times. Now, the way that we have been taught Islam is that there are things that are wrong and they require punishment. So there is this idea that God is mainly a punisher. A lot of Muslims have been brought up only to see God in that light. Maybe this conditioning makes me still get confused each time I read the word adhab. I can understand and feel the fear, but it is never related to me to a potential adhab as punishment in the akhirah. Fear of God is more related for me to the love of God or khushu'. But when I read the word adhab, it makes me feel that there's something more that I need to learn or transcend in order to dissolve this feeling I have of being cleaved apart.
Adhb means pure, clear. Ma'un adhb means most pure water. So adhab means to purify. And as an individual, as an animal, I don't like to be touched. I don't like anybody to correct me. I think I'm the best. Why do you think you are the best? Because your ruh is the best. So mistakenly, you say, I am the best. Most people, no matter what situation they are in, even if they keep quiet, they know they could do it better because of the ruh. Now, if you consider yourself as this animal, and if somebody corrects you, you then can consider it as being punishment. But if you consider it as purification, so as you are a living soul, then it is the ultimate gift. And this is both, and most of the time. So Allah doesn't punish us, as the Quran repeatedly says. You punish yourself by accumulating illusions that I am the doer. I've done. No. At best, you are given a role. Are you reading the prescription of that role? That's what it is. We're all the time mucking about me, I've done this and I've done. With whose authority? Who had given you that sanction to do this or not to do this, or how long to do it? We're all wayward. We have no leadership. Parents don't have a clue. Teachers are all the time trying to maintain what they know, what they think is being the standard. So we ended up having no light. Therefore, there is no reverence that we have truly. Become common. And the Quran got printed so much out of the guilt of people, so make it all. If you go 100 years ago, if you had the Quran, you were a very special person. 200 years ago, very, very special, because 100 years ago they started having the basic printing, very crude. 200 years ago, if you had one Quran in your home, you were a very special person, special home. It had taken 4 or 5 months of somebody to write it. But nowadays, every house has 20 Quran and nobody reads them. That's what it is. That's exactly what it became common. Churchill actually said it. He said, the more you make print the Quran, the more it becomes common and the more no reverence for it. It's exactly what happened. And Fahd did it. Fahd is the thousands upon thousands of Quran. Trash. Everywhere you go, there's a Quran. That's it. So it became common. No reverence. 100 years ago, somebody was a Hajji, you respect. Now, if somebody says, I'm Hajji, no, he's a thief. Whatever. Values have changed. You have to read it. No, but we like continuity. So we say, no, it is the same. It's not the same. It's not the same. Really? 50 years ago, if you were not married, something was off. Now I think it's the reverse. Because what? To do what? You have what expectation? You need companionship, maybe. You need some friendship, maybe. But what else?
Shaykh Fadhlalla, I have 3 more questions. Is that okay? Or shall we end here? Could you just comment then about die before you die?
Die to your desires, to your expectations, to your ambitions. You can't live as a child without ambitions. But as a wise old person, you still have ambition about what? You mean to say God has not created things in the perfection? You're accusing God of imperfection? Reduce your ambition, reduce your fears, reduce your anxieties, be more neutral, then you can help others. They can bring their tuning fork to you and they can get retuned. That's all. Die before you die, meaning die into turn away from the darkness of whatever it is of the lower self before the time comes that naturally you'll be stripped of your power. Be prepared for it. Be prepared for it. SubhanAllah. What a delight. I have no ability to act because there is always a chance of making mistakes and you don't like to make mistakes. Thank God for relieving me. Oh, I have no choice now. I celebrate. Urs, the point of death amongst many people was considered the day of the wedding. Now you are truly wedded to your own soul. Your inner true soulmate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. وختامها مسك. The end is much better.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Thank you. جزاكم